gravestone of Martha Keyes, for which this graveyard, Meeting House Hill graveyard in Princeton, Massachusetts, is probably best known. And Martha was the mother.
Yeah, Martha was the mother, and the little girls were going to go collect sand because sand was supposedly a good scrubbing agent back in the day. This was in the mid I think, 1700s. The little girls went, and their little sister was tagging along, and they told the little sister to go away, shoo, and little girl was never seen again. And they had all these search parties, and the mother basically had almost like a nervous breakdown, and she was calling out for the little girl for years, in the daytime, the nighttime, just calling out. And the legend has it that to this day you can still hear the wails and the cries of the mother calling out for her daughter Lucy, who was never found again, although there are a couple of stories attached to that too as to where she may have ended up. There were local tribes here, and there was a Caucasian woman many years later who was discovered among one of the local tribes. She spoke very little English, but she did say something about having been born and raised at Chusett Lake or something that alluded to Wachusett Mountain and the lake there. There was a gentleman named Little John who was the former neighbor of the family, of Martha's family, who on his deathbed, this is back in like the 1800s, early 1800s, he claimed to have murdered the child and stuffed her in a hollow log, but nobody seemed to believe him, so maybe he had a reputation for being kind of crazy. They also say that little childlike footprints have been found in the snow.
Those are Ellen's, not Lucy.
Yeah, I mean, it could be any actual child that's leaving footprints in the snow, so I don't really consider that to be super hardcore evidence of there being, a haunting from, Lucy Keyes, but these are the legends.
This is the gravestone of Captain Elisha Allen, and it reads, in memory of Captain Elisha Allen, who was inhumanely murdered by Samuel Frost, July the 10th, I think that says 1793. My understanding from the article I read online was that Samuel Frost had previously murdered his own father, was let off on a plea of insanity, but then apparently he murdered Captain Elisha Allen. And this time he was not let off. He was found guilty and was hanged in Worcester, Massachusetts in 1793.
Lucy Keyes may have been taken in by a local Indian tribe and raised by the Indian tribe, and not brought back to her family who was mourning her, for the rest of their living days. And it's possible that this traces back to negative feelings between the settlers and the local Indians, the fact that they were living basically separate existences, and that goes back in history to Redemption Rock.
This is Redemption Rock, and about 100 years prior to these incidences with the Keys, there were several dozen settlers that were actually captured in an Indian raid in the Worcester area, which is where we are now. And sometime later, I want to say it may have even been a few months later, there were negotiations between the settlers and several Indian tribes. I think 3 different Indian tribes had kidnapped or captured these settlers. They did negotiations on top of this rock. The head of all the Indian tribes, he went by the nickname of King. Right, he went by the nickname of King Philip. He was the head of these Indian groups. They negotiated the release of these settlers on Redemption Rock about 100 years prior to that.